Hey folks, welcome back. James McCloughan was born in Michigan, 1947. Grew up in a small community, went to a one-room school up through somewhere around middle school. Went on to go to a bigger school and lettered in 3 sports. He got 11 varsity letters: football, wrestling, and baseball. Then he went to college, got 7 more varsity letters in those same 3 sports. So he kind of knew a little bit about teamwork and discipline. Not long after that, he got a job at a local school where he was going to be teaching and coaching football and wrestling. They didn't have a baseball program yet. He was there for 3 months, and then he got a letter saying, "Report down here for your physical. You've been drafted." He tried to get a deferment because of his occupation. They denied him that. He was sent to basic training. His background led them to believe he would be a good candidate to be a medic. He had also worked in a funeral home and kind of like an EMT thing back in the day, so he had that experience. Landed in Vietnam and I can't remember the dates. I believe it was April of '68. Very first day he was there, they were in a firefight. Very first day. So he knew he was in for a wild ride. He was one of 2 medics in his company, and got to know his guys real well, took care of them really well, kind of ignored his own problems, didn't eat or sleep as much as he should. When May, I believe it was May of '68, so not very long after he'd been there, they got into an ambush. He ended up hearing someone scream for medic. He crawled about 100 yards out in front of the lines, dodging fire, running back and forth as he went. Pulled a guy, got out to the guy. He'd been injured. Loaded him up on his shoulders and ran him back to the lines. He did this multiple times. Over the course of 3 days, they were involved in an enormous, outmatched firefight. It was estimated that there were about, I want to say he's about 2,000 NVA and Viet Cong combined, somewhere around there. And his company was down to 89 men when this started. They normally run about 130. So they knew they were in trouble. And over the course of this battle, he was injured multiple times. He got 2 Purple Hearts. He was injured from a rocket fire, had shrapnel all up and down his back, top to bottom. And then he was also shot through the arm, I think, at one point. They tried to medevac him out, and he refused, saying that if he were gonna, he had a job to do. If he were gonna die, he was gonna do it there. And he honestly thought when he waved off medical treatment that that was his last day on earth. But he went back. He ended up being credited with saving 10 men's lives by going out, pulling them back, administering care to them, and keeping them alive long enough to get them to the hospital. And there was at least one that died, not one of those 10, but there was at least one other that died after being medevaced out. So he pulled at least 11 back. And that wasn't just, oh, Bob's hit over here, go check on him. Every one of them, he was going out into ambush areas and things like that, disregarding his own safety completely. He ended up getting out of the service, working at a hospital in the rear because he had 2 Purple Hearts and all kinds of other things came into it. And he was just a private first class still. He never achieved rank higher than that. Came back to the States, went back to the university or the school that he was teaching, and resumed his job after a couple of years. Taught there for somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 years. He listed the numbers of teams that he had coached, and I added them up, and it was over 160 different teams that he was the head coach of. Taught people. Said he took the experience that he had in sports and teaching before he went to Vietnam with him to Vietnam, and it helped him to understand what was required of him and what he had to do in order to achieve it. And in turn, he took what he experienced in Vietnam and brought it back, and it helped him in teaching students and coaching students for 40 years. Can't imagine some of the lessons those people learned. He was put in for a Distinguished Service Cross while he was still in Vietnam, and they denied it and busted him down to Bronze Star. He was awarded 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts. And many years later, someone started looking into his story and decided he needed the Distinguished Service Cross. It went through all the hoopla for 7 years. He talked to different congressmen and all this stuff, or people talked to different congressmen. Finally heard back that he was not going to be receiving the Distinguished Service Cross, but they decided that it was worthy of the Medal of Honor. Now, the Medal of Honor had the legalities of it. It had an expiration date. You couldn't receive it more than 5 years after the event took place, until Congress passed a law specifically for him. And well, there were other people that qualified at that time as well. So Congress passed a law to where it was capable for him to be awarded this medal. And again, it went through the bureaucracy. President Obama finally approved it, but he didn't receive it. That was on November 10th, 2016, I believe. President Trump is the one that actually awarded it to him in June of 2017. So it took forever, and he's like, well, I've waited this long. What's another year? Plus, he didn't feel like, he didn't go there for medals, but he was asked why he refused to get on that helicopter. He said, "There's no way I could have gotten on that helicopter. I couldn't leave my men out there. Plus, it was my job." At that point, the other medic had been killed, so he was the only medic at that point. He said, "It was my job, and my father taught me, if you have a job to do, you do it to your full capacity, period." And then he also added, "And I loved those men." After he retired, he started having dreams. All these ghosts coming back. He was seeing all these faces of these kids that had died. And he realized he had a problem. Someone convinced him to go to the VA counseling that they had available. And after a few weeks, he realized that he needed it. And through that process, he's come to realize that there are probably a lot of other people out there that need it as well. Specifically those coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that. So he spent 40 years trying to help people in their lives by coaching and teaching and things like that. That's no small thing. No small thing. Then after he retired, he's decided that the only way he's going to be able to keep successfully fighting these demons is to continue helping other people. So another amazing story of an amazing man who's lived an amazing life and wants to help others. That's his sole purpose. That's been his prime mover from the age of 17. So Jim McCloughan, thank you for everything that you went through, for everything that you did, for all those soldiers that you helped, for refusing to get on the chopper, for all the years of service you gave teaching and coaching, and now moving forward for the way that you're seeking to help other veterans. I admire you a great deal. Thank you very much.